also feel like San Antonio itself would have been closer.
Yeah, I'm not a
than
Dallas
Chicago.
guy. I don't have a home in Dallas. I don't have an apartment in Dallas. I got to stay in a hotel in Dallas.
Right. Oh, yeah, so you're saving everybody money by staying at your own apartment?
How about that?
How
Isn't that
thoughtful
great?
of you. How thoughtful
So generous.
of you.
Yes.
So generous. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the improbability of Victor Wembanyama. Bryce Harper's concerned about baseball, and PK Subban joins us for 5 good minutes. But we begin today with the first game of the Stanley Cup Final tonight in Raleigh, where the Carolina Hurricanes will host the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Carolina got here by going 12-1 so far in the playoffs, sweeping Ottawa and Philadelphia, and winning the last 4 games in a row over Montreal to win in 5. Las Vegas got here making the biggest noise by sweeping the most feared team in the league, Colorado. Wilbon, do you find the Golden Knights or the Hurricanes to be the most compelling heading into this series?
Tony, I think the Golden Knights, and part of it has nothing to do with the series that have led up to this. Part of it is that the Golden Knights are still so new. What are they, like 9 years old? And they've been to the championship round playing for the Stanley Cup 3 times. And I just like, wow. I mean, the league clearly made a mistake making too many players available when they did their expansion draft thing, and they took apart teams like my Blackhawks, and they said, okay, and I think if they had to do all over again, they might not, but they have. And so they get to play for the championship again. They're well managed. They're well coached. They've got players like Eichel and Marner who are going to be at the center of everything for the Golden Knights. And I just think, you know, I just think they're the story now because they're sort of omnipresent. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think they're bolder and stylistically, I think they're easier to root for than Carolina, which is going to do a lot of neutral zone stuff and try to clog you up and shut you down. And I get that. It's kind of like Arsenal just playing, you know, for the biggest soccer trophy other than World Cup in the world. They just don't excite me, and Vegas does.
Yeah. I want to point out, first of all, that these are not what we would call, the franchises are not in what we would call traditional cold weather hockey cities. The temperature in Las Vegas today is 100 degrees. And I believe that because, like you, I have been to Vegas in June for big fights, and it is so hot you cannot walk on the street. The temperature this weekend in Raleigh, North Carolina will be in the 90s. And I just, you know, I bring this up because what I would call the Sun Belt teams in the Eastern Conference lately have been very successful in the Stanley Cup. Since 2020, Tampa Bay and Florida have won the Cup 4 times and have been in it 6 times, right? They've been in it. Now, I think the more compelling team, I'll take a few seconds here, the more compelling team I believe to be Las Vegas, because the most compelling story is John Tortorella. But I watched Carolina smother Montreal. In the 4 games in a row that they beat Montreal, they only allowed 67 shots on goal, about 15, 16 a game. That's remarkable. I don't know how good Montreal is, and I don't know that they can do that to Las Vegas. But if they can do that to Las Vegas, a team that averages almost 26 shots on goal against Colorado, if they can do it, they can win. They can win.
They kind of remind me of some of those New Jersey teams that were great and won, but just bored me to death. And maybe that's unfair. Well, we'll watch. Starting with game 1 tonight. The NBA Finals, meanwhile, begin tomorrow night in San Antonio. They'll feature the Spurs and their 22-year-old megastar, Victor Wembanyama, taking on the Knicks, who have not won a title since Tony had that red afro. Trust me on this, he had a red afro. So what would be more improbable in your mind, Tone? Wemby winning the title now, or your Knicks winning it after all these decades?
Just to clarify, I bought that red afro at a Bozo the Clown shop.
You did not.
When I was in high school. I did. All right. So, look, neither team is going to be an improbable winner, and I will go through this. We have established on this show and on other shows that Victor Wembanyama is a force of nature. And so he can win early. Kareem won early. Yesterday on this show, you said he was the face of the NBA.
Yes.
Now, so nobody's going to be surprised, actually, if he wins. In terms of the Knicks and being surprised with the Knicks, I don't know. I mean, they won 54 games this year. They won 51 games last year. They won 50 the year before that. So they're not sneaking up on anybody. I'm a native New Yorker. If you ask me this question, I have to factor in history in order to come up with a real answer here. Because I go, the Knicks were the team of my youth, and for most of my life, I loved the New York Knicks. If I look at the history, that makes it sort of improbable because they haven't won in, 53 years. Okay, the Willis Reed, Walt Frazier teams won in 1970 and 1973. And after that, as we say on the streets, bupkis. They got twice to the final game. They lost to Olajuwon and they lost to Tim Duncan. So losing to someone as big as Victor Wembanyama would be in character, but they are playing great now. They're playing historically great now. Their point differential in all their playoff games, and 14 playoff games, is plus 271. They lost 2 games by a total of 2 points. These are numbers the NBA has never seen.
The Knicks are playing great, Tony. And, people are always, look, it's interesting to be, I mentioned him in Chicago, as you can see behind me, a city which could be very provincial and not care when its team is out. And our team's been out for a long time now. But it's interesting because the point guard of the New York Knicks grew up right behind me in this city, in Chicago.
Right.
Jalen Brunson. And so basically the sentiment seems to be, I want to root for Jalen Brunson, but I hate the Knicks. I hate most stuff New York. And I'm rooting for the Spurs. And the other night in sports bars, there were interesting stories here where people watched Wembanyama because they are fascinated with Wembanyama no matter where they're from and the fact that he's from France. I mean, people are so between curious and obsessed. And it's just fascinating to me. I go into this thinking they're even teams. I don't know who I'm going to be asked to pick to. I don't know. I can't separate them. I think I'm going to reluctantly stay with my position that you don't win right away. And that means the Knicks would beat, with more experience, San Antonio. But, Tone, how can you watch Wembanyama and that team and sort of pick against them? I'm really curious about this series.
The more improbable winner heading into this year would be San Antonio, a team that won 34 games last year and 22 the year before that. But the flowering of Victor Wembanyama makes nothing improbable if he wins. Let's move to baseball, where one of its biggest stars, Bryce Harper, is worried that both sides, players and owners, won't get together before games are missed next season. Harper said, quote, "We both have to understand that our game is in a great position to succeed right now, and we can't lose that momentum. You have to come to an agreement before games are lost because there's other things to do. It's not like 1994 where there was nothing else to do. There's a lot of other things to do than just watch baseball," unquote. Wilbon, do you see Harper's warning about the precarious place of baseball as a real concern or just a negotiating angle?
Tony, I don't care to make Bryce Harper like the voice of reason coming from the players or the voice of resistance. Bryce Harper doesn't impress me as that. Smoltz, Glavine, there are people over time who've been, I want to hear from them. And Harper he may have his finger on the pulse exactly of his brethren, and he may get it right. I don't. Harper, I'm just sort of dismissive of him when it comes to this. I got to hear some other voices down the line. If he's asking me to trust this union, I'm not doing that anyway. This union, I trust them to be stronger than all the other player unions historically because they have been. I'm a child of union parents. I am. So I tend to identify with that strength and go, I'm with them, not the owners, usually. But I think historically, the owners, they're on to something, Tony, and they want the valuations of their franchise to be much greater, and there's one way to get at that, and that's something the players don't want to accept. And so I'm not hearing any of this yet. Let's see when we get there.
I think that Harper is saying a good thing in that he's asking people to come to the middle. He doesn't want to lose games. He's saying essentially both sides have to sort of concede certain points.
You believe he carries that weight or influence?
No. What I'm going to say is, but he's not at all in favor of a salary cap. He doesn't want a salary cap. He said just the other day that the Los Angeles Dodgers are the best thing in baseball. His exact quote is, "Our game is in a great place because of the Los Angeles Dodgers." That means no salary cap. even though the owners are saying, we're going to take the minimum to $171 million. That means 12 of the 30 teams, Mike, are going to have to raise payroll. But as you say, the union wants no part of that. The last time the owners really went strong for a salary cap was 1994, and it resulted in a strike. I am interested in this. I'll take 20 more seconds. Harper says there's more now to do than there was before. Not for me, because I love baseball, not for you, but people in their 20s and 30s, they get the world on their phone every single day. They're involved in social media every day.
Doesn't it?
This is, yeah, but it's sort of a warning that says, you know, what if baseball goes away and nobody really cares? The ratings on the World Series now are about half what they were nationally than in 1994. You got to consider that. Let's take a break. Coming up, how much credit does John Tortorella deserve for the Golden Knights' playoff success? We're going to ask PK Subban.
We'll also ask him where the Hurricanes stand in his mind right now, hours before Game 1.
I mean, it feels like a long way off, Mike, but everything says there's going to be either a lockout or a strike.
Yes, that's what I believe.
Everything seems to say. In a story we broke in our first segment, the Stanley Cup Final begins tonight. And here to help us break it down is our great friend, ESPN hockey analyst PK Subban, who's on all day, by the way. Started at 7:50 in the morning. He's on all day. Let's start with this. If you were going to sell this matchup, right, Carolina and Las Vegas, to a casual hockey fan, how would you do it?
There's nothing better than traditional hockey in the playoffs. We know that everything ramps up in the playoffs, but to me, this could be one of the best finals ever. When you really think about the makeup of a Carolina Hurricanes team, we saw them go up against Montreal. They kind of were able to push Montreal out of the series. No team is pushing anybody out of this series. This is going to be as physical as it comes, hard-nosed, ground-and-pound type of hockey. The fans are going to absolutely love the physicality in this series, the speed, the skill. Hockey is on the biggest platform, and these two teams are going to put on a show, no question.
Oh, could you get me fired up? Well, let's zero in on the Golden Knights for a second. Taken over by John Tortorella with 8 games left in the regular season, and now they're in the final. He says the team activated itself, PK. That sounds fine, but how much success do you think he deserves? I'm sorry, how much credit for the success do you think he deserves?
Well, as a player, you know, I got to be cognizant of this because we don't oftentimes defer to coaching and management and give them their flowers. But in this case, I'm going to go over John Tortorella and say that he's an X factor in this series. Because of his experience, he's won a Stanley Cup. He's been around the league. He knows the players. He's been able to watch this team. He's going to make adjustments in this series. And, you know, so is Rod Brind'Amour, but I really like the adjustments that John Tortorella has made down the second half and in the playoffs. That's why the Vegas Golden Knights are where they are right now. You look up and down this lineup, there's not one passenger. It's all leaders. Every single guy, including Mitch Marner, is playing the right way. Thomas Hertl, a guy who was on the third line, looked like he was slowing down. Torts sits him down, and he comes out of nowhere with this second wave of his career again. So I think Torts has been able to get a lot more juice out of these two players. Maybe that's just a different voice. It doesn't matter. As a coach, your job is to get the most out of your players. He's doing that, and that's why they're in the Stanley Cup Final.
All right, let's flip this for a second. You have said that it's final or bust for the Hurricanes, and they did make it. How do they stand right now in your mind going into this series?
Well, listen, a lot of it is going to be on the shoulders of Freddie Anderson. He's played fantastic throughout the playoffs, but there's pressure on him. You know, he hasn't been tested as much. We saw in the Montreal series, 9 shots, 11 shots, 12 shots, but Montreal couldn't get inside. They didn't play through the middle of the ice like we expected them to. Well, Vegas has owned the middle of the ice in this playoffs, and they did it against the best offensive team. So to me, you know, when I look at this series, it's the middle of the ice, and Vegas is going to own that. I look at Jack Eichel, Mitch Marner, and the skilled players. I think it's going to be very, very tough for Carolina defensively. They're going to put that pressure on them, so we have to see how they respond.
All right, so we'll get you out of here on this. It's obvious, and you have publicly said that you think Vegas is going to win this series. Is there anything beyond the middle of the ice? Is there stuff you can tell us as to why you are picking Las Vegas?
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that. I'm sorry, Tony, because I don't think I answered the question. Freddie Anderson is the key factor for Carolina, if that answers your question. So, you know, he's got to be good in net. He hasn't been tested nearly as much. And like I said with Montreal, you know, Vegas has been dominant in the middle of the ice. I think they're going to get inside, and he's going to have to make second and third saves. If he can't do that, I don't see this series going too long. I have Vegas in 6. You asked me why I picked Vegas in 6. Starts with John Tortorella, come down through the middle of the ice, Jack Eichel, Barbashev, their depth, Colton Sissons, Cole Lazar, the way they played, but their defense and goaltending, I think separates them from everybody else right now that was in the playoffs and that's left in the playoffs, including Carolina. So you sprinkle in a little bit of that top-end talent in Marner and Eichel, and I think that they're going to like the result at the end of this playoffs.
It's a great pleasure when you're on with us. It makes us very
appreciate
happy.
It, man.
Thank you, PK.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You
guys.
can catch
Thanks
more
a
of
lot.
PK tonight on The Point at 7 Eastern with Game 1 on ABC at 8. Let's take one last break, but still to come. Do your Bears, Wilbon, do they now have no choice but to move to Indiana, which you said would never happen?
You've been asking me these questions for 2 years, and I told you they're not going to Indiana. 2 years. You ask me this stuff, I tell you to ignore it like I tell them. A few thoughts on the life and times of Rick Adelman, who Tony and I both really liked and respected.
Yep. Go back a long way. Yep.
Yep.
Wonderful to have PK on. Wonderful to have him on.
It is great, particularly today.